All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here on the Spotlight Sports Network. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening today. Follow me on the social media networks and like me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where you can find me. Also, follow me on Spotify for all of my podcast episodes. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel by both the Spotlight Sports Network and the Snake Sports Talk Show. We have such a stacked show here today. I cannot wait. I'm doing well. Of course, here in Vegas, they have extended the staying at home initiative here in Vegas until mid-May. So there are a lot of different pushbacks, but we're slowly but surely opening up our doors, and hopefully we will be able to get back to our regular scheduled programming as far as normalcy goes. So we got a lot of stuff going on, but I want to end up shifting to this first because we've been having a lot of feedbacks amongst this topic, and that involves Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. So there were rumors about the Green Bay Packers and why that they picked the Utah State quarterback Jordan Love and why they traded up. So the whole point of it was, and this was coming from an AFC coach, that said the reason that the Packers picked Jordan Love is because they're sending a message to Aaron Rodgers saying, we run this joint, not you. Why on earth would Green Bay do that? So, because think about it this way. Out of all of the veteran quarterbacks in the NFL, you think of Drew Brees. Would you think that the New Orleans Saints would put an ultimatum and saying that, in their draft, hey, we run this place, not you? Not really, because Drew Brees is not ad lib, and he's a hard worker, and he absolutely loves the coaching and the franchise. How about Tom Brady? Now that he's in Tampa Bay and thinking, that they've made all of the picks. They made all the picks, especially the offensive tackle, to protect Tom Brady. That all of this was for his interest. Well, Tom Brady is the GOAT, and he's trustworthy. He's not ad lib. And amongst some of the other quarterbacks, could you imagine the Chiefs if they ended up drafting a quarterback and they would have turned and looked to Patrick Mahomes and said, listen, we run this. We run this. But Patrick Mahomes is respectful. And Patrick Mahomes is a leader. Why am I saying all of this about all these quarterbacks? Well, listen, this is what's been getting on my case, and this is what has been kind of brewing all of this up. Understand something. Whether, I do have Green Bay fans who are watching this and, and even NFL fans in general. Look, I like Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong. There is no knock on Aaron Rodgers in any particular way. Here's the deal we have to understand about Aaron Rodgers. We know Aaron Rodgers is getting old at 36, and there are some attitudes and there are some moods that sometimes develop, and that does happen over time. It happens over age. Okay, look at Tom Brady being 43. Okay, his body, even though that he keeps it up in shape, there are times where his body can break down. It's natural. It happens. Aaron is coming off of so many injuries over time, and not to mention the collarbone surgery that he had. But here's the other thing you have to realize. Remember the year when Mike McCarthy was the coach and the amount of times on scripted plays that the Packers were running? Aaron Rodgers led the league in throwaways. Why did Aaron Rodgers lead that category? Because part of it was whatever Mike McCarthy's schemes were on offense to make it work, to getting the Packers first downs and even getting the Packers the leads. He said, nah, this play's stupid. I'm going to throw it away, and I'm going to end up flipping you the bird, saying, I don't like it. I want to do my own thing. Well, listen, Aaron, this is not how this works. Look, we kind of get a little bit confused because of the fact of, well, Drew Brees gets exactly what he wants. Tom Brady gets exactly what he wants. Why didn't Aaron get what he wants? Look, the problem of that is there's a part of Aaron Rodgers we all don't see. This is also the same thing that was happening with Matt LaFleur. And Matt LaFleur has only been there for 1 year. And I don't know if the rumors are true, but they said Matt LaFleur commented and said, I'm done with Aaron. I'm tired of Aaron. So what does that tell you? There's tendencies that Aaron Rodgers can wear people out. He wore out Mike McCarthy. He's starting to wear out Matt LaFleur. And I think, honestly, there are tendencies where he's wore out offensive coordinators, and he's even wore out a couple of players. It's nothing against Aaron, but it's the direction Aaron chooses to go with. You could see it. You could see it in every play scripted. And listen, Packer fans, I mean, look, I'm sure I may get pushback, but that's okay. That's fine with me. But the fact of the matter is Aaron Rodgers is quote unquote uncoachable. Let me give you a perfect example. If any of you are watching that are parents, okay, and this is what I ended up learning about this. If any of you that are watching here today are parents, when is the only time that you voice yourself out and you reestablish who runs the household? When you get pushback and talkbacks. Okay? Look, when it comes to certain kids, especially in this generation, in this era, they have to understand, I'm not here punishing you. I'm here disciplining you. Because by the time that you turn 18 years old and you're out and about in the real world, you're going to understand and you are going to experience things that I've experienced growing up in your age. That's what this is preparing. But if you get more ad lib and you get more pushback and talkbacks, of course, and the strong parents understand this, you have to reestablish who runs the household, who pays the bills, who puts food on the table. That's what this is all about. Green Bay is sending a message to Aaron Rodgers, letting him know, look, we love you, Aaron, but understand that this is also part of our business as well as a franchise to be looking forward to the future. And if you're not on board with it, then that's where we let you go. And we'll be okay with that. Because here's the other thing. Here's what's interesting. Brett Favre voiced out. And Brett Favre was in this position in Green Bay when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. How did that sit well with Brett Favre? Eventually, Favre, twice in his career, would be retiring and then coming back to the NFL with either the Jets or the Vikings. And he voiced out that in the position that Aaron is in right now, that Favre was in years ago, that there is a tendency and there may be a chance Aaron Rodgers could leave Green Bay. But the fact of the matter is, this is all the responses that I get from certain Packer fans, not all of them. I've spoken to at least two real good Packer fans, one of them being a really good colleague of mine and the other one's a real good friend, and they voiced out their reasonable opinion. But some Green Bay fans, all I hear is, hey, stop picking on Aaron Rodgers. He's got no weapons. He's got no support. Really? Green Bay actually ended up reshaping the offensive line to protect Aaron because they know Aaron Rodgers is a franchise quarterback. They drafted another running back behind Aaron Jones as running back depth. And you got Devontae Adams. And hopefully Allen Lazard favors well and he develops. But don't give me this crap saying Aaron Rodgers doesn't have support. The fact of the matter is Aaron's got to be okay with the play style. If you can't go on script and you have to basically go rogue on every play, that just tells you who you are as a person and as a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has to understand that. And that's why Green Bay, in a sense, and it makes perfect sense, why they picked Jordan Love. Because the more and more Aaron Rodgers wears out Matt LaFleur and has already wore out Mike McCarthy. I mean, think about it this way. If Mike McCarthy does well in Dallas with Dak Prescott, that's going to shed a lot of light. It's not going to now point fingers at Mike McCarthy. It's going to point fingers at Aaron Rodgers. And think of it this way. Green Bay fans, hear me out. If 2-3 years from now, when Jordan Love is developed and his raw talent is used to his best extent, are you going to tell me you're going to love Jordan Love now too? Because a lot of you didn't really like the pick as much. It caught you by surprise. That's what I'm waiting for. Because if this table turns where Aaron Rodgers, he's shown the door and here's Jordan Love, the next big thing, and Green Bay rants and raves about it, that's where you know that life itself will go on. But Aaron Rodgers, you either are getting with the program or you're not. That shows maturity, that shows leadership, and that also shows growth. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers, he's not coachable. He's not coachable. Let me shift to this. So the NBA was about to have a schedule yesterday that they were going to end up slowly opening up facilities. Now that date has been pushed back to May 8th because the Atlanta Hawks, they seen what was going on and they said, we're not ready yet. We're not quite ready to open our facilities up yet to possibly resume the NBA season. Now I've gotten reports that the combine and the draft lottery have been canceled. One of my colleagues has a video of it. You can look it up. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was really, really interesting because here's the thing. Which organization really performed themselves out well during this pandemic? I could say the NFL has. The NFL has had the draft. The NFL has had free agency. All those things that you could do at home. You don't have to have physical contact with people because we're all displaying our ways of social distancing, and I think all of us are doing an amazing job doing so. But think about it. In these types of situations, like the draft lottery, you could always do at a facility with only a small amount of people. Because really, what is the draft lottery all about? It's all about, like, you know, when you go to like bingo nights and you draw a ball and then it just tells you exactly which place and which number. Think about it. The NBA could definitely do that. But here's another thing that I will also say about the NBA, much like the NHL, because both of them have lottery draft picks. I think, to me personally, they need to eliminate the draft lottery for the NBA. Think about over the years, all of the small market teams, the ones that don't attract free agents, and how well that their performances are. Their performances is not great. Their performances is not great. They don't get these developing kids. And listen, I had a strong conversation with one that told me a lot about these draft lotteries and have also told me about the developments of some of these young kids coming out of college to going into the NBA. Most of them are now going into the G League to develop. And I still think it's smart. Me coming from a baseball background, because I have a friend of mine who's currently in the minor leagues in the Pittsburgh Pirates system. And the one thing that he could tell you, it's a process. It's a process. You get drafted. You have to start from the bottom to work your way up. But that's all part of growth. That's all part of this growth cycle. So a lot of these kids coming out of the NBA, because the big thing, the big rant and rave that we've had over the years is the one and done deal. Because a kid will play 1 year in college and then he gets all these endorsement deals, he gets all this merchandise, he gets all these shoe brands, and then he's got to then get himself into the NBA through the draft. And that's where all of this now starts to develop. I still think it's the smartest thing that if a kid is not quite ready, you have two options. You could either stay another year in college, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, or even a junior. You could stay another year in college, redevelop your skills, or you could join the G League and work your way from there. Because I've had comments of players who've come through the G League that said it's the most influential thing because it's taking all these young kids who aren't quite ready yet to be playing in the NBA caliber, and it's shaping their game. I spoke with one. He currently plays in the Charlotte Hornets. Goes into the G League, reshapes his game, and now I think he's got a bright future in Charlotte. Not a big market, but this is a place where it's developing future stars. So I keep thinking that this NBA lottery draft, that every year, it's usually always a probability type of draft where the probabilities of certain teams who would get the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 pick would usually go to, you'll be lucky enough if you get it from a losing franchise like the Knicks, or even parts of it, the Chicago Bulls or the Atlanta Hawks. But then there are also mixtures of teams who are also coming off of really good seasons. They may be a little bit mid-tier of the draft. But here's the other thing. Golden State has the opportunity now of getting the lottery draft pick. Why is that? Equity, trade up for draft picks. They're developing something. They are brewing something up. That's why I look at the New England Patriots. They're not dumb. They got enough equity, and they're going to make all these trades to get draft capital. So eventually, when it comes to next season's draft, New England is going to shock us all. It's much like how Golden State will. But I just think that this draft lottery, I think it's something that they got to get rid of. But at the same time, this draft, the NFL did this. The NFL did this virtually. The NFL, and this is what's kind of interesting about people when we go through this pandemic, because a lot of us are hoping that, you know, the worst comes out throughout this whole pandemic. We get a crash. We get some, like, I'm tired of hearing that. The NFL draft was the most watched draft during this pandemic. You can look it up on the views. The reason why is because there's something going on in the sports world. That's why everybody tuned in. And it went by smoothly. No crashes, no complications. All the kids got drafted. But this is a hard thing for the NBA because we've had no March Madness. So all these seniors who coming out of college can't showcase their skills. Now you don't have no combine, and you can't even get these young kids to, again, showcase their skills to all these NBA franchises. And now we got no NBA draft. What? It's unbelievable. You know what I say with this? I say that all these seniors should get at least a year refresh. Hit the refresh button. Unbelievable. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Coming up, I will be talking a little bit more on the NBA because, of course, with all of us tuning in to the show The Last Dance, we've had a lot of responses. Some of them are pushback about, Isaiah Thomas, Jerry Krause. And then also here, the other thing I'll also be talking about is how Dennis Rodman, because everybody in this era of basketball is not fond of load management. Imagine how Dennis Rodman in The Last Dance figured out load management and originated the name. And then finally, I will also have my top 10 NFL teams after free agency and after to the draft, who I think are some top teams to come up. Don't go anywhere. Snake Sports Talk Show will be right back. So, for those of you just tuning in here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, welcome back. We're here on the Spotlight Sports Network. Honestly, love this place. Great colleagues, love it. Once we went on to break, I did mention about this. So here's what's going to be interesting. And by the way, I'm sure for all of you, because throughout this whole pandemic, you guys have been trying to keep yourselves entertained. I have myself, honestly. Well, a good thing is coffee's fresh. And of course, too, I'm going to be spending time with the family. And by the way, things have been really, really good. I'm really, really happy and blessed. And, you ever get those times where, you get through the work week and you're just so tired and exhausted and so much more. I felt like, this past week has been such a challenge, such a big challenge. But besides that, so tomorrow we've got episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance, and I can't wait to watch them. And this documentary has just been so great. This documentary has just been amazing. It's been shedding the light on so much stuff that we may have never come across before. And so here's one of the things. There's a couple. One, everybody now is taking their shots at Isaiah Thomas. Okay, first and foremost, everybody has to understand that era of the 90s, okay, the bad boys of Detroit, Isaiah Thomas, and you could think of, and you could look at him one way or the other. But to me, he is the most underrated point guard in the NBA in history. I mean, if you look at how Isaiah Thomas worked his way through the NBA just to getting the championships, here's the thing. People don't just hate Isaiah Thomas because of the fact of they're the Detroit Bad Boys. He was part of that group. They hated him because of the fact they were beating the heroes. They were beating Magic and the Lakers. They were beating Michael Jordan and the Bulls. That's where he got a lot of the pushback. And still to this day, Chicago and Detroit, they are not friendly. They are not friendly with each other. Still to this day. But this is where everybody's just now figuring this out. I mean, think about it. If you were in that era where you're watching Detroit and you're watching Chicago, it's better. There's better understanding behind that. Because look, if you think that there were a lot of rivalries in this era of basketball compared to, the 90s, think again. There were a lot of rivalries, and the NBA thrived on rivalries. Lakers, Celtics, Bulls, Pistons. There were so many different rivalries. And by the way, their style of basketball was if any of you have ever watched the movie White Man Can't Jump, that was kind of the era. It was hard. You had to grind every time you had possession of the ball. You had to work your way through to getting the points, getting the basket, and getting the possessions. That's what it was all about. The NBA, because we're in a shooters type league, there's not much physicality that's going through it. And a lot of players are understanding that. They're figuring that out. So the physicality part is slowly kind of going down because, look, you throw in a little bit of some Russell Westbrooks. You throw in a little bit more of those hyper athletic players. But at the same time, there's not a whole lot of physicality. That, to me, is where I feel like there should be a good balance of physicality, because I like to be one of those guys that likes to see, games on the line. I just have such a pure excitement because of it. I do. The other thing that I wanted to mention too, because a lot of NBA fans, they are not fond of this, and they are not fond of the term load management. But yet, when we watched The Last Dance with Dennis Rodman and how he took X amount of days off during the season, okay, in Chicago, everybody stepped up. Michael Jordan stepped up. Scottie Pippen stepped up. Horace Grant stepped up. Even Steve Kerr and Tony Kukoc. And Dennis had to take time off during the season. And what's interesting is, and this is where people now are starting to figure this out. When Dennis Rodman took the time off, everybody thought, what the hell's he doing? We're still in season. We're not even done yet. We're not even close to the playoffs. But then by the time Dennis came in, I mean, Phil Jackson, I think Phil Jackson voiced this out beautifully about Dennis. The fact that coming back from vacation time and still putting the work in was telling you the type of player and the type of person Dennis Rodman was in the day. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Imagine this. If Michael Jordan took time off, or if Scottie Pippen took time off, either one of those guys, how impactful would have that been if either one of those players took the times off and still Dennis Rodman would be playing? That, of course, could be a double-edged sword. It could have worked one way or the other. But everybody that gets on people's cases about these load managements, understand something. Kawhi Leonard suffered an injury before and says, look, I don't want to push it. I don't want to push too much. The only time I'm going to give 110% effort is when we make the playoffs. That would go the same for Paul George. Part of it would also go the same for LeBron James. You take a night off because why? The playoffs are more important than the season is. Why do you think most of these playoff caliber teams are so good during the playoffs? Because everybody takes time off. They take time off in some of the games that are not important. It's like, look, if LeBron was to take a day off when they're playing Detroit or they're playing Atlanta, that's fine. I'm not saying that, like, in load management, it should be something that should be influential because, yes, you still got to bring your 110%. That's why you're a professional. But at the same time, if these are teams that you know are rebuilding groups, they're only starting their young squads, why not even the playing field a little bit more? Give your star players enough time to rest and heal before potential injuries happen. And by the time you make the playoffs, I mean, if you're 10 or 8 games over, and you're already punching your ticket into the playoffs, what's the point? Why would you want to push some of your star players that much? They come to camp, they come to work out, and they get themselves prepared in these games. But that's where everybody's kind of, not so fond of load management because they want to see their star players. That's why they pay these tickets. That's why sometimes it's a harder double-edged sword. But to me, Dennis Rodman expressed it perfectly. He expressed it perfectly. We just never had a term for it. And now that we see how Dennis Rodman dealt with load management, it's the way that the Bulls were shaped. That's exactly how the Bulls kind of carried out their way and why they were such a great team. Time now for the hot press. So I just ended up getting this notification from ESPN that apparently NBA GMs are concerned about coaches who might be at high risk if they are exposed to the coronavirus if play resumes. So, I mean, think about it this way. I mean, I kind of see a little bit of an understanding with it because, look, you got Greg Popovich, you got you got all these older coaches, Mike D'Antoni. I mean, this is a challenge. I know everybody wants to open their doors. Trust me, out here in Vegas, we're getting a lot of non-essential business owners, not to mention we're getting some casino workers and all of the casino owners and CEOs that want their doors to open. And I get that. But it does express a great amount of safety for not just the owners and the CEOs, but also for the workers, the managers, the security people, and it goes the same for the NBA. You got the personnels, you got the coaches, you got the players. So it is a challenge indeed. And I do understand with what some NBA teams are expressing themselves about. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for the next couple of days. When we get to May 8th, we'll see exactly how they express it. But I do understand the concerns of it because, look, we don't want to end up coming across where if we opened our doors and then let's say the next day Greg Popovich got COVID-19. Like that would probably be the biggest breakout story in the NBA and probably the biggest breakout story in news altogether because we're all kind of monitoring this COVID-19. But there are going to be a lot of challenges, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. So the NFL, of course, announced that saying, quote unquote, they are starting on schedule. So basically, we know with the OTAs, we know with the practices, they're supposed to be now releasing their 17-week schedule. And I can't wait to see exactly how that is. Because, look, I mean, we already get a sense that you're going to have the in-division games. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going to be out here in Vegas. So we get a chance to see Tom Brady facing off against Derek Carr and the newly relocated Raiders. And so, it'll be fun and exciting to see that schedule. But we could kind of already agree and we already know those in-division games, those in-division rivalries as well that will be on schedule. But of course, I'm sure some of this will have to deal with, internationally. I mean, you have the London series, you have the Mexico series, and so on and so forth. That's going to be interesting to see. Like there are a lot of challenges there that are going to be left that, people are going to have to piece this out one way or the other. So it will be interesting. It will be very, very interesting to see. So the Vegas bet lines for next season for NFL. So they have two things. They got two things. They got the coach of the year and they got the rookie of the year. So from what Vegas's point that they are making is that they believe that Bill Belichick is high favor to winning coach of the year, and the number one overall pick from the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, is the favorite to winning rookie of the year. That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. So this is the odds. So Joe Burrow winning rookie of the year is a 3-1 odd. And the ones behind him are Tua at 10-1, Justin Herbert at 30-1, and Jordan Love 200-1. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is at 11-2. I mean, this is also a high-powering rookie running back for Kansas City. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. But, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen. But again, Joe Burrow has some challenges of his own he has to overcome. I mean, he's got to overcome that defense with Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, and so many other really good defenses in the AFC. I mean, the AFC is so wide open that all these defenses are stacking up, and man, they're not playing around. They're absolutely not playing around. So in Belichick's case, he's favored 7-1 of coach of the year. Behind him, I mean, you got Matt LaFleur, who's his odds. He's got his odds a little bit low, but I'm this is also another challenge for Bill Belichick. You got no Tom Brady. You got no Tom Brady there, and you lost all of your star players, Kyle Van Noy, and so many others. But this will be interesting to watch Bill Belichick throughout the season next year, seeing exactly where he favors out. If he gets to a point where he wins coach of the year, that will be interesting. That would be great. But Bill Belichick and Joe Burrow, coach of the year, rookie of the year, it's going to be fun. That is really, really going to be fun. So that was your hot press. So coming up next here as we go up into our second break, I will be breaking down all 10 teams after NFL free agency and the draft because we've all done our grades. We've all done our grades on these teams. Now is to a point where we take them all together and we take the top 10 teams, both AFC and NFC, and see where they sit at. It's going to be interesting. You will be surprised who I will have in my top 10s coming up next here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. All righty, everybody, welcome back. And first and foremost, I want to thank all of you guys for joining in here on the Spotlight Sports Network, watching the Snake Sports Talk Show. As I've said before, starting out the show, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram for all my social media platforms. Also, subscribe to the Snake Sports Talk Show and the Spotlight Sports Network as well, to catch up on all the episodes and all of the live streams that are going on here on this network. And follow me on Spotify. I also do podcasts as well. I currently have 15 episodes out. Actually going to be geared up and getting ready for episode 16. It's been such a while, but, you know, long work week and stuff like that, trying to kind of piece everything in together. So, but finally now, since everything is kind of slowing itself down, it's now finally getting to the point where everything's getting a little bit convenient and a little bit more, I guess you could say a little bit more simpler. So finally, when, I'm going to be having that time. So here on the best for last here on this show, I will be giving out my top 10 NFL teams. And look, there have been a lot of teams that have trended that I think really make a huge impact in the NFL for next season, hopefully, if we do get this next season underway. But a lot of teams have very much, they very much improved their rosters. Most of them have improved their rosters, whether it was through free agency or the draft. But I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited for what next season is going to bring. I can't wait for it. But here's the other thing. This is what's going to be interesting to everybody, and it's going to shock a lot of people, because I don't think, outside of Detroit and outside of a little bit of Washington and Jacksonville, I don't think there's really a terrible team out there. There's really not a terrible team. Every team has fixed up their holes. Every single one of them have got impactful players, both in free agency and in the draft. And I think that they're going to be making strides. They're going to be making strides for next season. So here we go. Top 10 NFL teams. So the number 10 team that I have right now, just to start things off, I have the Arizona Cardinals at number 10. Look, the Cardinals actually improved a little bit more on their roster. I mean, look, besides the fact of them getting DeAndre Hopkins, and they ended up getting an offensive tackle, Josh Jones, in the draft, and they were improving a lot of places. Now, I only put them on the 10 because they still got to fix that offensive line. They still got to give Kyler Murray some space, some protection. We know Kyler Murray can move his feet. We know he can move his feet, and he's accurate of the football. And I just truly think that Arizona is going to be an interesting team to watch by next season, because of the fact of, you got Seattle that stays competitive. You got San Francisco, who I truly think may win the NFC West again. And the LA Rams, I'm not sure what's going to be going on with them. But I'm not I'm not pushing anything away from Sean McVay, but LA, they got to figure this thing out. This is going to be interesting in that NFC West. So I have Arizona to start out with at number 10. So the number 9 team for me is the Cleveland Browns. Okay, look, what did Cleveland do right? They fixed up their offensive line. They signed Jack Conklin, the former Tennessee Titan. He's now a Cleveland Brown. They ended up going and getting more offensive tackles as well. And this is now where the pressure's on Baker Mayfield, and the why Cleveland is at number 9 right now. Because look, I want Cleveland to succeed. I want Cleveland to succeed. We're not all bashing on the Browns, but the fact of the matter is, you've got Baltimore, their defense, Pittsburgh's defense, and you've got you've got other defenses in the AFC that are coming at you. And you've got Austin Hooper, you've got Odell, and you've got Jarvis Landry, you got Nick Chubb, and you have Kareem Hunt. So a lot is on the line for Baker Mayfield. That's a lot of pressure, but they do have a grown-up in the head coaching position in Kevin Stefanski. He's a smart guy, knows how to put this playbook together, but this is where Baker now has to be better than where he was a year ago. So I think Cleveland at number 9 is perfect, but hopefully they can make bigger strides, and maybe they might be a top 5 team. So number 8 for me, this was what was kind of interesting, but I think number 8 for me is the Philadelphia Eagles. Look, they got a lot. They ended up getting a lot. So number 8, Philadelphia, they go and they fix up their secondaries. They go and get Darius Slay, and they ended up going and getting a couple of good players, Javon Hargraves, to fix up that defensive front line. They ended up getting Jatavis Brown in their linebacking position. But the other thing is that they get some receivers for Carson Wentz, because lots of these receivers, including Nelson Aguilar, was dropping balls. And these were not throws that were on Carson Wentz. These were plays that these receivers should have made. Not to mention, you had 2-star wide receivers who were hurt. So Philadelphia, I think, is going to be an interesting team. Miles Sanders, I think, is going to be primed for a really, really good year on the run game. And look, I'm not giving anything away from Howie Roseman. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And I think Philadelphia, perfect at number 8, because I want to see them make those strides. This is a team that a year ago, they suffered so many injuries, but yet made it to the playoffs. That's grit. That is so much grit, so much determination. I loved it. So the number 7 team, I think, is the Denver Broncos. Number 7 is the Denver Broncos. This is a team that I think is going to be a dark horse team in the NFL next season. This is a team, you got Drew Lock, and late in the season, they won 4 of their last 5 games in the regular season. They go and get Jerry Jeudy. They go and get A.J. Bouye at the corner, and they go in and fix up a little bit more of that offensive line and some defensive pieces. I love what Denver did. This is the rebounding season for them. And so I think Denver at number 7 is perfect. So look, anything can happen with Drew Lock. He's got Cortland Sutton. He's got Jerry Jeudy, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay. He's got some weapons, and you've got Noah Fant. And so I do see Drew Lock possibly being a guy. I don't think he's going to be like a top 10 quarterback, but he's going to be one lurking in as potentially one that can make a huge impact. So I think Denver at number 7 works for me, because this is a team that's a dark horse and could make their strides to be a top 5 team as well. So the number 6 team I got to put, and of course, is my favorite team, is the LA Chargers. Chargers had, and this is what's interesting because nobody's talking about it. The Chargers had a really, really good offseason if you look at it. They finally, after 30 years later, they fixed their offensive line. They go and get a Pro Bowl guard in Trey Turner. They go and get left tackle at Brian Bulaga. So there's protection in that front line. Plus, franchise tag Hunter Henry. And you pick up the 5th-year option of Mike Williams. But here's the other thing that's also interesting. So in the draft, because it was much needed, they go and draft a quarterback like they were projected in getting Justin Herbert. He's now going to be the future face of this franchise, but here was also one that really put the icing on the cake, was trading with New England, because New England loves the 2nd and 3rd round picks. They go and get Kenneth Murray, the Oklahoma product, at linebacker, who I think, to me, like Darius Leonard, is a tackling machine. He's not afraid to get to the running back or the quarterback and breaks through the offensive line. He's an offensive disruptor. So the other thing is, too, they go and get Pro Bowler Chris Harris in the secondary. This is a team that's ready to win now. And I think number 6 at this point is a perfect spot, because they could turn around and maybe go to number 3 or number 4, depending on it. But here's the other thing. This is what's going to be challenging, because you do have Tyrod Taylor, who in his career is a winning quarterback. He's a winning quarterback dating back to the Buffalo Bills. And a little bit of a rebounding or rebuilding Cleveland Browns team. So the Chargers got some really good expectations, but I've said this, give it about week 8, week 9. If things decide to change, and changing for a reason, I think Justin Herbert would be coming in at week 8, week 9, and I think he might take this league by storm. I'm just giving out this kind of prediction, but Chargers at number 6 works for me. I think this gives me a little bit of a cushion and some comfortability and some peace of mind as well. So the Chargers, I think number 6 is perfect, and I think they could definitely turn into a top 5 team. So number 5 for me would be the Buffalo Bills. Look, Buffalo upgraded defenses. This is a team that Sean McDermott is probably one of the most underappreciated coaches in the NFL. One of. Because Sean McDermott put this thing together, and the Bills, they upgraded a lot of different pieces. They ended up going and getting Stephon Diggs in a trade, trading up that number 1 pick or the first round pick, and they go in and fix up the defenses, because this is a team that the defense was stacked up, but they did lose Shaq Lawson, which I thought was kind of hard, but instead they go and fill in the holes. I think Buffalo, to me, they have an open opportunity. It's the same with the Jets, and it's the same with the Dolphins. Now that Tom Brady is out of the AFC East and he's in the NFC, I think this will be interesting to watch with, with Buffalo, who's got a tough defense. I think this is a team that's favored to win the AFC East, and Sean McDermott knows how to put this thing together. But here's the one challenging part. Josh Allen's coming off of a wild card loss that we had no idea what the hell that was. But often young quarterbacks, by year 2, they learn a lot. So year 3, I think, is going to be interesting to watch Josh Allen and see how he performs. But Buffalo, man, this is an underrating team. This is an underrating team with some really good offensive and defensive players. I mean, they're putting this thing together. So I think Buffalo at number 5 is a great cushion. And who knows? They may be an interesting team all throughout this AFC. But we'll see when the time comes. So number four to me, because this was kind of challenging. This was kind of challenging in a way. So number 4, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. Look, the Saints, of course, they've got Emmanuel Sanders at wide receiver, and they ended up getting a couple of good defensive pieces, but they go and get a guard from Michigan, where everybody just looks at Michigan and they don't produce players. This kid, the reason they pick him is because they need extra protection for a guy like Drew Brees. Drew Brees is getting up in his years, still has good playing time. But by the way, the sneaky signing was getting Jameis Winston. And you got him and you got Taysom Hill. So they're going to utilize everybody all around. The Saints, yes, they are coming off of a loss from Minnesota, which we know they've had bad breaks in the playoffs multiple times. But I do see New Orleans taking a little bit of a different look, and I think that they're going in with a chip on their shoulder, and this is what's going to be fun to watch by next season. So I have, I've got them right now. I've got them as an interesting team in the NFC, but this South division is going to be really, really tough. So number 3 team, here's the thing. I didn't rank them number 1. I didn't rank them number 2, but I think number 3 seems fair enough. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, this has been a huge upgrade for them. The fact that they go and get Tom Brady in his last 2 years. I mean, yes, he's old and is a little bit fragile, but what did Tampa Bay do right? They go and get offensive linemen. Because that's the one thing. You get a quarterback that moves this franchise, you got to find ways to protect him. So Tampa Bay at number 3 because they go and get the best offensive tackle in Tristan Wirfs. Big kid can protect a guy like Tom Brady. But here's the other thing though too. They go and get Keyshawn Vaughn from Vanderbilt. I think this kid's a really, really good runner. And they go and Rob Gronkowski, he's out of retirement. I'm not saying Rob Gronkowski is going to be a huge splash, but by the way, I mean, you got Cameron Brate, who also serves as a secondary tight end. So I think this is going to be interesting for me to watch. So I think Tampa, they could look like a playoff team. I think this will be a team that could punch their ticket into the playoffs. Look, we don't want to get over our heads yet about Super Bowl or anything else. But Tampa, I thought, did a really, really good job. They got protection for Tom. They got him a couple of good weapons. But that run game, I know, was important. So I think that this was perfect for Tampa. They'll be an interesting team in that South Division. But again, this is outwards looking in. So I have them right there up at number 3. It's a perfect position for me. So the number 2 team are the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So this is what shocked everybody because, look, I know they're coming off of a Super Bowl, and I know that they're re-signing a lot of players, and they got some really, really good players. Do not get me wrong. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was exactly what they needed in that run game because, look, you have to think about it. When Kareem Hunt was suspended and he goes to Cleveland, it was hurting a little bit more of their run game. Patrick Mahomes now has a secondary receiver and a really, really good rusher who I think works for this team. So Kansas City, of course, they're looking to try to do a repeat of back-to-back Super Bowl champions. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy journey road. We've seen this happen with, with New England. It's not an easy road. So I think Kansas City, because they're the biggest target in the NFL now. Once you're Super Bowl champions, the target is all on you. The pressure's all on you. And I think Kansas City, Andy Reid, he's going to figure some things out. But this is where it's going to get tougher as hopefully when the season goes up. But Kansas City at number 2 is reasonable for me. So, of course, I'm sure I might get a little bit of some pushback, and maybe I'll get a little bit more of like, what in the world? But Baltimore, can I just say that they look like a number 1 team? Once again, you all may say, but what about the playoffs? What about all this? We're not talking about playoffs just yet. But Baltimore, I don't know how they, I just think that this is a team that clicks on all cylinders, and they just do everything right. They do a lot of things right. They go and get Calais Campbell for literally dirt cheap. You get Calais Campbell, you draft Patrick Queen. The defense is stacked. But by the way, the offense, we know that they are going to need some wide receivers to helping Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, they got J.K. Dobbins. I think it'll be interesting to see him and Mark Ingram in that running back tandem. But we are going to see, because this is a team that's a run-first offense. That's just how they are. They don't really pass a whole lot. Now, they are losing a tight end in Hayden Hurst, but you still got Mark Andrews, who I think is a real good tight end. But Baltimore is going to have a lot of challenges, and it's hard for me to say, can they repeat a 14-win season? Because, again, outside of most of these teams that we know they're rebuilding, they're not going to win a whole lot. Lots of these teams are stacking up. And I don't see more losing teams. I see more of potential grinding winning teams. So these are the teams that are coming out of the blue that are now starting to get better. So I think Baltimore right there standing at lone number 1 is reasonable for me. Defense is great. Offense, they're interesting. And Lamar Jackson, and look, I don't know if it'll be tough for back-to-back MVP seasons, but John Harbaugh is working this thing together. Now, I know that there are a lot of challenges when it comes to the playoffs, but Baltimore, it's like they've got no struggles. They've got no struggles, except for when they go up into the playoffs. I get that. But if you're talking about in season, it's interesting for me. So I think Baltimore right there would be the reasonable number 1. So that's the list that I have as I have it set. Arizona, number 10, number 9, the Cleveland Browns. You got number 8. Number 8, you've got Philadelphia there. Number 7, you got Denver. Number 6 are the Chargers. Number 5, Buffalo. Number 4, you have New Orleans. Tampa at number 3, Kansas City at number 2, and Baltimore at number 1. This is what's an interesting list. And as I've said, I may get a little bit of some pushback, but remember, a lot of these teams, it could change over time. But all these teams, like, they're getting better. Outside of Detroit, outside of Jacksonville, they're getting better. They're getting better as we speak. But again, it will be interesting. It will be very, very interesting. So, but all right, guys, thanks for watching here on the Snake Sports Talk Show on the Spotlight Sports Network. I was so glad to be up here with you guys this morning. Oh, I told you it was a stacked show, but it was so much fun. I hope all of you guys stay safe and healthy, and we will see you tomorrow morning, same time, 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care of yourselves.